we gotta talk about mesh networks. Because mesh networks are awesome. So we are joined here. Come again. And maybe just, quick introduction. Who are you? What are you working on?
Okay, my name is Richard Myers, and I'm working for GoTenna. We make wireless mesh long-range radios. I'm here mostly in connection with TX-Tenna, which is a collaboration with Samurai, who was here earlier. I like to think I'm sort of the face of the project because their faces are private, not obscured, but they're really doing the development work. What we supply is the side that is the radio that pairs with your mobile phone, and an SDK that allows people to build apps, and that's what they've done. We had a shared interest in this kind of technology, and so it's been a great collaboration, and very excited to get it into people's hands.
Oh yes, absolutely. I've been waiting for this for a long time. So what exactly are mesh networks? Because there are, as with everything, so many buzzwords out. So is this vaporware or is this actually something useful?
It's a good question. So this is a GoTenna. It's the world's first long-range mobile mesh network technology. So in a nutshell, what that means is that when you send a message, it doesn't just go to a radio nearby. It actually hops from one GoTenna to the next, to the next, to the next. And like I said, so this pairs with your mobile phone, either Android or iOS, and it has a messaging app that's just like any WhatsApp or any messaging app you might have. And very simply, just lets you send end-to-end encrypted messages over a decentralized network. And so this is great for privacy. It's one of the advantages of this over other mobile mesh technologies is the range. You get on the order of 1.5 kilometers, something like that, but it varies, of course. Many things can change the propagation. We actually have some interesting people who have used our SDK to create an app for ultralight, I believe it's ultralight gliders, so GliderLink, if anybody's in that market. And it allows them to communicate when they're up there flying, so they don't run into each other. So you could actually send your GPS location and your other nearby flyers. And when you're up in the air, you of course get great range. So they've got the range record on these things. So so there's a lot of exciting possibilities, and it's both for privacy and just for resiliency. So we get a lot of people who are interested in this just for hurricanes coming through. The power line's going to go down. You can communicate with your family. You can go through a gateway, for instance, and let people know you're alive, or and kind of support your community that way. So we have people that are. I was saying I live in Sweden, and there's a group that's in the south, and the neighbors got together and decided to build their own mesh network just so they could communicate, but in case of emergency, they would be sort of independent from the centralized carriers. This is while we're all here, is about privacy and censorship resistance, and that is one of the key innovations that you get from a mesh network. Is you're not dependent on your ISP or your carrier to not surveil you and to censor what not censor you. Basically, it's a ground up person-to-person network. People-powered network, I think, is the buzzword I've heard people use. So that's cool. That's the lowdown.
What's the battery life?
We get I think it's about a day. I mean, this is a very low power device. It's about 1 watt. I think it's maybe less in Europe, just based on it. So it's using a UHF frequencies of about, I think it's a ½ watt here. It's a watt in the US. I think that's around 900 megahertz, something like that, for you radio guys out there. So that's.
Is there any plans to or possibilities of integrating it within existing devices? So the technology you've got there, integrating it within certain communications devices that already exist, or moving forward?
I mean, like I said, so you can pair it with your phone and make your own app. So that's one form of integration. But as far as putting this actual technology in other devices, I mean, some of the biggest innovations we have are really with the protocols that connect these radios and doing it in an efficient way. So that the overhead doesn't dominate the data. I know that, I don't know much about it, but I know that there was some effort when Google had this idea of a sort of modular phone to do something like that. But of course, this is another problem with centralization. They cancel the projects. You do a lot of research and development, they cancel the project. But I mean, I'm sure in theory, yes, that's very possible. We have probably in the next year where you're going to probably see some things in that direction. Updates that allow you to use your GoTenna in different ways than just paired to your mobile phone.
Awesome.
So.
And so what types of data packages can be sent over this network? Is it just messaging, or can we already do 4K live streams?
Absolutely not 4K live streams. There's a trade-off that's inherent to radio technology, and that to get better range, you do have to give up some bandwidth. So that's why our sort of the killer app is messaging, and that is a killer app for mobile phones too. How often do you kind of call somebody on the phone nowadays? It's always going to be on a messaging app. So that's really our base application. But there's a lot of data when you start sort of peeling the onion back. There's a lot of data where it is quite small. So one example of that is setting GPS location. So that's a really natural thing for this, especially people are moving around in a very common use for this would be hiking. So you're going out with your family, maybe you're in a place in the US where they don't have sort of a ubiquitous cell phone coverage. I was in Yellowstone National Park, and it's a huge park and there's no cell phone reception. Could have really used this, it would have been nice. So that's one application, is GPS location. And Bitcoin, Bitcoin, that's why we sort of, contacted Samurai in the first place, is we could see this great, meshing of this kind of technology and what you have when you send a transaction. A transaction is 200 and some bytes. I don't know exactly what the average is. Or 380 bytes, I think I read somewhere, is the average. And I think our packets are, I want to say 260 bytes. I don't know that offhand, but so it's within the same sort of order of magnitude. So it was a good match for that. Now, what are the other kinds of things you could send? There are people who can break up, you can send pictures, you can send short voice messages. That's kind of possible, and I know that there's been some attempts to do that, but it's going to vary, and technology will get better over time too, and probably will go up. But you're not going to stream 4K. That's a good thing to mention.
And so you bring up the point that you can send your GPS location, and as I understand it, there's even an SOS function that you can broadcast to all the people in the network. But of course that is an inherent trade-off for privacy, right? Because if I carry this thing around and everyone knows it all the time where I am, that's a huge leak in privacy. So how do you handle that trade-off?
On the privacy thing, so my understanding of the way the SOS function works is I don't think it's always broadcasting where you're at. I think there's a button you push, something like that. So there's been a lot of, from the very beginning of the project, they were, even before getting involved in Bitcoin, privacy was always a very high priority. And one way we do that is, so if you get a cell phone, for instance, you get a subscriber ID, that's assigned to you by a central organization. With the GoTenna, you set it yourself. So you can set it to your phone number, and that's how most consumer people who aren't like tinfoil hat Bitcoiners, what they do is they just set it to their phone number, and anybody can find them. And that's that's good for just being reached, but you can change it every minute if you want. So you don't have to. It's not tied to you. In fact, this GoTenna, if I turned it on, anybody could pair with it. It's just it's going to connect to any phone that happens to be turned on that isn't already paired. So that's definitely privacy, and it's also, like I said very quickly, maybe it's end-to-end encrypted. So this version is end-to-end encrypted. So the first thing it does is exchange encryption keys. So even though it's hopping over multiple nodes, because it's end-to-end encrypted, they don't know what you're saying. And just it's worth mentioning that it's a wireless technology, and it's short bursty data. That's sort of the class. So it's not like streaming data; it's short bursty data. And what that means is, if somebody is, if there's somebody trying to, track you down for a wrench attack, they're going to have to somehow track a very brief radio broadcast within a 1.5 kilometer region to get you. So, there's a physical privacy that you get with this that you don't get necessarily from your cell phone, which in theory could do it, but because of cell towers and the fact that they triangulate you sort of automatically, you don't get. So there's definitely an emphasis on privacy, and then just privacy from the fact that it's radio-based.
These units are available on sale now, are they?
Yeah, it's been available, I want to say, a year and a half.
Oh, yeah.
So they've been available. There's quite a few out there. I would say, of course, US and Europe is probably our biggest markets.
Yeah.
But you see them, there's a map, imeshu.com.
Nice.
So you can go and see, and this is, like I mentioned, based on privacy. So it's a self-reported. So you can go to this map, and people can self-report just to connect with other mesh users in their area.
And where can consumers buy them from?
So you can go to GoTenna.com.
GoTenna.com, cool.
GoTenna.com, and it's about $80 US per, and they sell them in packs of 2.
Awesome.
It's the most useful in packs of 2.
Yeah.
So, and I was going to say one other thing about that. Yeah, so go to iMeshu. Oh, no, it's iMeshu. If you look at that map, they estimate it's about 15% of the people who self-report.
Oh,
so
wow.
the numbers are probably bigger than what you see there. It's more just a representation.
Interesting, yeah.
Like, look at what's there.
And so when setting up such a mesh network, is it most useful that there are some people that put one of these GoTennas in their home and connect it to a port, right, to a internet, to a power connection,
Right.
and then have one additional GoTenna on the go with them, or how would you do the setup of such a mesh network from starting?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we have people doing both. Like if you're out in a mobile scenario where people are hiking, then of course you're not doing that. But actually, even in that scenario, there's some people who have, I should say there's a mode you can basically, you don't have to pair it with a mobile phone. So there's a certain push button combination here which puts it in a relay only mode. So then it runs off the battery, it doesn't connect to a phone, and then all it does is sit there and relay messages. So if you're hiking and you've got a couple of these, you can like hang it in a tree, and then that'll connect you back to your base station. So that's a clever sort of standalone way to use these. And because the battery usage is quite low, it could last all day. You don't have to worry about it. But if you do want to plug it into your, and I should say also, somebody asked me this earlier, if you're just using it paired to your phone, it will also be relay. You don't have to do anything special to get it to relay. But you can also put it in your house, plug it into power, and people have done this. They've actually hooked them up, put it up in their window upstairs or something like that, and just to create a larger network for everyone.
And then, as one person in this mesh network is connected to an outside service, for example, the internet, does that mean that all the people in this mesh network can access this outside connection?
Not, so that would have to be an application that's written. So I think right now there is something GoTenna Plus, which allows you to send SMS messages. So it's essentially going to go through the nearby units until it finds one with an internet connection, and then it uses an internet-based SMS relay. But it's actually open to your creativity because there's open APIs for these things. So if you wanted to make your own base station that connected, that's essentially what TX10 is. It's connecting to a base station, which is a gateway to the internet for Bitcoin transactions. So really, we're looking for developers too who have these ideas and who want to make their own tools using GoTennas. So, yeah.
Well, I'm asking specifically because of a couple of friends, Thomas and Nettie, back in Germany. We had the idea of using such a mesh network, and that one of us is going to connect to a Blockstream satellite, so that we can receive at least the block data from the satellite already. And I talked to Alan back, and he said that there are possibilities of doing upstreaming of transactions if we have short burst satellite transmitters. So if one person in the mesh network has a Blockstream satellite and a transaction sender, would that mean that all the participants in the mesh network could send Bitcoin transactions over the mesh network, over the satellite, to the public blockchain?
Absolutely. You could definitely build that. that is the pure off-grid dream. Now, from a technical standpoint, there might be there's one asymmetric aspect. There is sending a transaction is a small number of bytes, but if you're going to stay in sync with the blockchain, now you're dealing with 1.8 megabytes every 10 minutes. So how do you reduce that? But fortunately, everything you do for scaling helps you in this regard. And there are proposals not related to the mesh, but like compact block filters, as neutrino, that stuff. That's a potential way to maybe get the bandwidth low enough. So I'd like to see people investigate that. I think that's a very exciting question. So I would love to help you with this. So yeah, but and also of course light clients. If you're just running a light client, that's a totally different security model, but it could be a good match for a low bandwidth connection. So yeah, anything is possible. And I think that would be the you can imagine doing what you're describing at a Pork Fest or one of these festivals, maybe, or Burning Man, whatever you're into, and that would be a cool way to be transacting in a community without any centralized point of contact with the banks or the cell phone providers. So it'd be awesome.
And okay, so we here at the World Crypto Network, of course, treasure the value and the power of open source software. So how much of GoTenna is open source?
So the app that you run on your cell phone is not open source. The APIs, the SDKs, are not open source. So I wouldn't say we are kind of like hang our hat on the open source thing. Should we be? I mean, this is for you guys to tell us. We're a company for operating for money, but if that's what our consumers are asking for, I think that you should let us know what you need and how we can help be open source. Now, I can't say GoTenna is completely open source. So and a lot of the projects that are built on our SDK are open source. So we're definitely very open source friendly, and I would say maybe even a little open hardware friendly. There are people who have cracked these things open, and we don't, we can't from FCC reasons encourage that, but we certainly have been known to comment on maybe things they could try. So I'd like to say we're open source friendly, but not open source.
Well, I do have the show here on the WCN, which is called Open Source Everything. So I guess that is kind of the answer to that question.
Yes.
And I do think it's just one additional layer of trust that is being removed. Because if we know exactly what is in the software and if we know exactly what is in the hardware, we do not have to trust that there might not be maybe like a government spy like in that hardware that copies all the information and encrypts it or something, right?
Definitely true. Yeah.
And also the benefit of people being able to see the code to actually walk through it and find any issues that you might not have, your own testing team might not have found. And
right.
I'm an ex-software tester, and I even on my most proud projects where I thought I'd caught everything, I never caught everything. And I think that if the more things are open source, the more chances we have of finding these issues and ironing them out.
Yeah. I mean, as a software developer, I mean that's what I've done before I did this. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm a software developer, so of course I'm in favor of that. But there's a lot of business considerations too.
Yes, of course.
People need to get paid for their work, so I think that's the. I'm not an expert in these things, but I can see both sides.
Definitely, yeah.
Very true. Yeah. So we've already talked about a lot. So maybe tell the people first where they can find you and anything else that might be interesting that we've not yet talked about.
Okay. Well, you can find me on Twitter. I'm @rmyers_ on @remyers_ on Twitter, and we're also at GoTenna on Twitter. You can go to imeshu.com and find out more about. There's a forum where they discuss projects. Also go to the Mule Tools. I'm sure Samurai mentioned it too, but I encourage you to go to Mule Tools to find out more, not just about GoTenna, but about other projects in that genre, of decentralizing the P2P network. There's probably things I'm forgetting, but if you start there, you'll probably find links to the rest. Thanks.
Well, Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much for the work that you do at GoTenna, and keep it up.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time. Excellent.
You.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.
And we are still here we're inside the fish tank. It is still quite
sweat
hot.
box.
It is a sweat box.
It is, yeah.
But you can't shut us up talking about Bitcoin and decentralized stuff like mesh networks. So super exciting.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea. I like the idea of it's almost like decentralizing the Ask Mike. Decentralizing. It's a decentralized network, isn't it? So it's kind of moving towards that community contribution rather than one controlling entity.